G'day guys, Alfie here. This is the second sort of development video, I guess, of Mini Melbourne and Archaeology Adventure. And today's episode, I don't know how long it's going to be, but we're going to run, or I'm going to run you through the process that we went through to get to this stage that you see here, which is the entire city that we had mapped into Minecraft and looking very grey and dreary. So if you haven't already read the blog post, there's actually two blog posts associated with this particular video. The first detailing the mistakes that were made, and the second detailing, that's what I wanted to find, the second detailing the process, this final process again that I'll share today that we went through to get to this point here. And that little granite block there is important for, and welcome to Melbourne. Yes, it's important for the process I went through to align the pieces together. But first things first, let's go into Tinkercad. Alright, so first thing we had was a model that I imported into Tinkercad because I understand Tinkercad. I've played with Tinkercad quite a bit. 123D's design software is awesome and all this sort of stuff. And I knew that we had this little button up here that you can press, which with this particular file is probably going to take an awfully long time. There you go. Turn off the ground and make it even bigger, and this is the bit that's going to take all the time. So what that does basically is convert any mesh or any build in Tinkercad into a schematic or into a voxelized or blocked or whatever you want to call it sort of output option. So you could see the model that I imported lost a lot of detail anyway, and funnily enough, changing it to Minecraft blocks didn't actually change that detail loss. That detail loss stayed, and I do have some worlds I can show you of what it looked like once we imported it. But well, actually, let's do that while we're waiting for that. Come here, MC Edit, open one of the older ones. Let's see if we can find what I'm looking for. Is it you? Let's see what this one does. Yeah, this is it. So this was early days, but this is the direct import of that model from, and we were looking at it from this direction here, the direct import of that model from Tinkercad, and this is what it looks like in MC Edit, and I wonder whether it's, yes it has. So you can see here, if I turn ground off again, it's missing parts of buildings, it's missing part of terrain, it's really not, like the basic structure is there, but that's pretty much all you're getting. And the scale, there's no way to formalize that scale. So what that looks like in here is it's pretty close to a block a meter, but that's based on this size and this model, this amount of data and all that sort of stuff. So it's not very efficient at converting it over because of the loss of fidelity in importing into Tinkercad. But that's sort of the first process I went through, was to create a schematic out of Tinkercad and end up here. The next program I went to is this one here called Voxel. And the great thing about Voxel is it literally lets you voxelize a mesh straight away. One of the big limitations I found was if you wanted a 250 by 250 by 250 model area, you can't. So that was one of the big issues we came across. But if I load in a mesh, you can see it's put that quite nicely actually in a 126 by 126 by 126 box. And it looks really cool, but again, that's a third of the city map. So this here is about 600 meters across, and they've jammed it into 126. So to effectively use this program, we would have had to have limited our model sizes to 100, which we were talking about initially. Ooh. But I'm glad we didn't end up doing it, because it would have been quite problematic. So the other cool thing about Magic of Voxel, and I'm not doing a great job of it, but you can see what's happening, is we can actually paint particular structures, and it would take a bit of time to do, but you can do that. And then if we export that as a Vox, let's save that somewhere a bit more relevant right now, to demo video. And if we now go back into MC Edit, I wonder, do I have the right filter in here? So let's grab an area. Why can't I filter? Because I was selecting chunks. Filter, structure to function, 3D to Minecraft. Do I have it in here? Vox to schematic. Yes, I do. What was it? C: downloads. Actually, I'm just going to put it in C:. So if we just go C: /demo video dot vox, and we hit filter. Did it work? Nope. C: demo video filter now. I can't remember how to use it. I'm really frustrated at myself. So this is what it came in like, that same data that you saw in Tinkercad. So that same model, basically, it's this same piece here. You can see it's got that building there. This is what it did to it after I painted it and all that sort of stuff. So you can see the scale is definitely an issue. The painting is somewhat useful for the broad brush strokes, but to be precise in that would have taken me far too long in the end. So we decided against that. Now, enter Cubicle. This program is a wicked little program. I like it a lot. And what you can see here is the start of some of the modeling that we did. I actually got all of the pieces we had and put them in here, and you can see that it's not actually aligned. So even if I export this as a schematic, it's too hard to align, and selecting things and moving them. Now, admittedly, there's not a great deal of data in here at the moment, but if you triple the amount of data in here, things get really, really slow, and it's really hard to line them up. I know they're in a grid format here, but it just, what I ended up finding was it was too hard to actually do it using that. So I'm going to show you the process we actually went through. All right, and the first thing you do in Cubicle is you create a voxelizer. All right, and I'm going to call it voxelizer, and then you load them. Oh no, that was the wrong thing to do. Undo that. Then you load a mesh, and I'm going to load not one of those ones. I'm going to load why can't it find them? Oh, because yeah, it's in here. So I'm going to load, let's load A3. right? And you can see it's given it a size of 200 by 58 by 186, which is great, perfect, in fact. And then all you do is you go here and you hit export as a schematic. And I exported them up there. That was there, dang it. Into here, into all of these schematics, basically. So that was, what did I say, A03, so that's this schematic here. All right, so you just export it as a schematic. Then you come back into MC Edit and you just import that as a schematic. So if we go back to where I was, downloads, model supply, original set, A3. You can see that it's just really quite nicely put that in. I should mention that between, at some stage, between here, oh no, this one is renorthed. So I did do a renorth test in Tinkercad. Cool. So very early on we renorthed, because Melbourne is actually not, streets don't point north, but it looks a lot better when they do. So yeah, I didn't go back to Cubicle. No, I didn't go back to Magic of Voxel because that's still not a renorthed model file. But yes, so that's the process we went through. Now, if I go back into the other world I loaded, so A3 is actually from this block in this direction. Until we come across another one of those blocks. So here it is here. So A3 runs from here over to there in line with that. So essentially all I did then was import each schematic individually and then label the corner so I knew where they were. There's an egg there. I was trying to work out what it was. Label the corner so that I knew where it was. And if we follow that directly south, we should see another one in about 200 blocks. At some stage, there it is. There's one in 200 blocks. There'll be another one directly down this line. So this line runs the entire way down the map. And there's another one there. And here we're coming up to Flinders Street Station and the Yarra River, and there should be another one here somewhere, I would have thought. There's one here on Hamer Hall, and I believe this version of the map has a flaw in it and it's caused by that building there. Yes, so for some reason, I actually don't know whether it is caused by Eureka Tower or not, but for some reason there are these two blocks here, and that caused a shift of the models, so I had to repair that. But other than that, that was the only sort of issue point, was the shifting of those models. Everything else actually worked ridiculously well. So in reality, what we had here was a very good base to work from in terms of the 3D data. And that's the process we went through. So we went from trying to do whole big slabs, so a third of this entire map, which I'm pretty sure takes you to a block up, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, big block. So I'm pretty sure the first third came up to here somewhere, and then we had the third down to the river and the third below the river, and that was just untenable. It would have been a lot quicker if we could effectively get the scale right between them and everything, but there was just far too many limitations, because what happens in Cubicle, if I grab this and I scale it, so if I scale it, let's say by 3, and then preview it, and we wait a little bit, I believe it's anything above 256 in the vertical. I could be wrong. Is this going to prove me wrong? No, it's not going to prove me right, that's for sure. So what if we go to 5? I shouldn't hit OK, I should hit preview, dang it. 5 should push us over, I would think. Maybe. Thinking about it. You can see it's starting to slow down. It's still not over 1028. Okay. So let's go to 6. That should kick it over 1028. 1028 seems to be this magical hard limit, or 1024 probably. Oh, there you go. Hard limit. I just broke it. It's unable to render it, and if I wait for it to do it again, cancel that. Let's do a new one. Or open. No. Let's do a new one. Add a new voxelizer. Yeah. Add a mesh. Back up to original. Where are they? Thirds. That's what I want. If I grab top 0. Right, this will bring it in and downscale it. So this is this is the third of that map. So it's going to bring and downscale it. Unless Cubicle's updated, I don't think it has. Waiting for it to bring it in and make it all squares. There it is. So you can see this is one issue we had. It's 0 pivot is an issue. So if I change that mesh, you saw I picked 0 pivot, which is down here. If I pick center pivot, you'll see it'll do something different. So if you are exporting these OBJs, make sure you get your pivot point right. But you can see it stretched it so that it fit 256 in one direction. And that's what it tends to do. If it's too big, it will shrink it to 256. And if it's too small, it will stretch it to about that size too, or try its best to get it there anyway. So once this new, but yeah, that 256 sort of stretching to that size or shrinking to that size is a real issue for scale, because you don't know. You have to know the measurements of the longest side or the tallest side in one case, so that you can effectively scale it back to where it should be so that the scale is correct meter to meter. So if I now work on this, so if I scale it up to 5 and we hit preview on that, hopefully this will show you the disconnect that the model creates. I think it's once you go above 1024 in any one direction. But it interestingly only seems to affect the vertical dimension. Yes, okay. So you can see it's just destroyed that model. It's completely useless now. And you can see it did put a hard limit of 1024 in there. So that was one issue we came across and why we had to move away from big slabs of data to more efficient slabs of data. If you go and have a look at the blog post, as I said, in that we were going to run 100 meter squares. We ended up with 200 meter squares, which I'm very, very glad about, because it took quite a bit of time to stitch all the pieces together, and multiplying that by 3 or 4 wouldn't have been a great deal of fun. However, this is what we ended up with. Of course, we had to remove the grass around the outside, and the height of the map is actually very important, because future plans. But next video will either be back to Archaeology Adventure and how I was working on the game mechanics of that and getting the test version ready, or it'll be how I started detailing this and what we ended up doing to get it detailed. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that explained sort of the process we went through. Cubicle's an awesome program. I'm going to use it for future Minecraft projects because it is that easy to import really cool structures and things like that. But that's pretty much it. All right. Thanks. See you next time.